When my sister Emma announced she was throwing me a baby shower, I should have known something was wrong. Emma didn't do generous. She didn't do selfless. But everyone else saw a loving sister stepping up, so I smiled and said thank you. The venue was beautiful, pink and white balloons everywhere, a dessert table that looked like it belonged in a magazine. 50 guests, all watching as Emma handed me a pristine white gift box with a silver bow. "Open this one first," she said, her smile too bright, too perfect. So I did, and the room went silent. Because inside wasn't a baby gift. It was my husband's watch, the one he'd lost 6 months ago. The one Emma swore she'd never seen. The one he'd been wearing in the photos I found on her phone last week. Growing up with Emma taught me that some people are born knowing how to take. Not aggressively, not obviously, but quietly, skillfully, the way water finds the lowest point and settles there. She was older by 3 years, which in childhood mathematics meant she had authority I could never challenge. When we were young, she'd borrow my toys and return them broken, borrow my clothes and return them stained, borrow my stories and tell them as her own. My parents called it sharing. I called it surviving. By the time we were teenagers, Emma had perfected the art of proximity theft. She'd date the boys I liked, befriend the friends I'd made, join the clubs I'd started. Not because she wanted these things, but because I had them. And taking them proved something she needed to prove. I learned to keep things to myself. Smaller dreams. Quieter victories. If Emma didn't know about it, she couldn't take it. I moved to Chicago for college, 3 states away, and finally breathed. I built a life that was mine, studied architecture, made friends who didn't know Emma existed, fell in love with a city that felt big enough to hold me without shrinking me down. That's where I met Daniel. He was kind in that genuine way that catches you off guard. A structural engineer who talked about buildings like they were puzzles worth solving. He listened when I spoke. He remembered details. He showed up. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. A simple moment in our apartment with takeout and the ring he'd been carrying around for a week, waiting for the perfect time. There was no perfect time, so he just asked, and I said yes. I didn't tell my family right away. Not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted to keep it ours for a little while longer. Just us, planning, dreaming, building something before the world weighed in. But eventually, I called. My mother cried happy tears. My father offered congratulations in his quiet, measured way. And Emma said all the right things. "I'm so happy for you," she said. "He sounds wonderful. I can't wait to meet him." I should have heard the edge in her voice, should have recognized the pattern. But I wanted to believe that time and distance had changed things, that we'd both grown past the dynamic that defined our childhood. The first red flag came at our engagement party. Emma flew in from Boston, where she'd been working in pharmaceutical sales. She showed up in a dress that turned heads, spent the entire night charming Daniel's family, laughing too loudly at his jokes, touching his arm when she talked to him. "Your sister's great," Daniel said later, smiling. "Really outgoing." "Yeah," I said. "She's something." I told myself I was being paranoid, possessive. Emma was just being friendly, welcoming him to the family. It didn't mean anything. But then she started texting him. Memes, articles, random questions about Chicago, things she could have easily asked me. And he'd respond, because that's who Daniel was. Polite, inclusive, assuming good intentions. "She's just trying to get to know me," he said when I mentioned it. "It's sweet." It wasn't sweet. It was reconnaissance. The wedding was small, intimate, exactly what we wanted. Emma was my maid of honor because my mother insisted and because refusing would have required explanations I didn't want to give. She performed the role perfectly, organized the bachelorette party, gave a touching speech, smiled in every photo. But during the reception, I caught her dancing with Daniel, her hand on his shoulder, their heads close together. When I joined them, she stepped back smoothly, seamlessly, like nothing had happened. "Just telling him embarrassing stories about you," she said, laughing. Daniel grinned. "All good ones? I promise?" I smiled, but something cold settled in my chest. We moved to a house in Oak Park a year later, a small Victorian with original hardwood and a backyard big enough for the future we were planning. Emma visited often, too often. She'd show up unannounced with wine and takeout, stay for hours, ask detailed questions about Daniel's work, his hobbies, his family. "She's just being sisterly," Daniel said. "It's nice that you're getting closer." We weren't getting closer. She was getting closer to him. Then I got pregnant. 12 weeks along when we told our families. Carefully, nervously, hopefully. My parents were ecstatic. Daniel's parents cried. And Emma hugged me so tightly, I almost believed she was happy. "I'm going to be an aunt," she whispered. "This is amazing." For a few weeks, it felt real. She called to check on me, sent articles about pregnancy, asked about names, and I let my guard down. Let myself believe that maybe motherhood would be the thing that finally made us actual sisters. Daniel started working longer hours, a big project with tight deadlines. He'd come home exhausted, kiss me, ask about my day, then disappear into his office. I understood. The project was important. We needed the money with a baby coming. But then, little things started feeling wrong. His phone face down on the counter. Showers immediately after getting home. A new cologne I didn't recognize. Late night texts he'd angle away from me. "Who's texting?" I asked once. "Just work stuff," he said, not looking up. I told myself I was being irrational, hormonal. Pregnancy does things to your brain, makes you see threats that aren't there. But my instincts had always been good, especially about Emma. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Daniel's work dinners that lasted until midnight, the way he'd leave the room to take certain calls, the credit card charges at restaurants I knew his company didn't use. Then, one afternoon, Emma called. "I'm in Chicago for a conference. Want to grab lunch?" "Sure," I said. "Where are you staying?" "The Langham. Super fancy. The company's paying." I thought nothing of it. Until that night, when Daniel said he had a late meeting downtown and wouldn't be home until after 10. Something clicked. That cold, certain feeling you get when pieces align in exactly the way you hoped they wouldn't. I called the Langham, asked if Emma Richardson had checked in. She had. Room 2847. My hands shook as I hung up, because I could already see it, feel it, the shape of the betrayal before I'd confirmed anything. I didn't confront him. Not yet, because I'd learned from watching Emma my whole life that the person who reveals their hand first loses. So I started documenting everything. His schedule, his excuses, the charges. I checked his coat pockets and found a receipt from a jewelry store. A bracelet I'd never received. I logged into our shared cell account and downloaded his text records. And there it was. Months of texts. Hundreds of them. Between Daniel and Emma. Not work texts. Not sibling-in-law friendly texts. Intimate texts. Planning texts. Can't wait to see you. Texts. messages about hotels and timing and making excuses. I read them all, every single one. Let each word carve a little deeper. The earliest ones dated back 8 months. Right around the time Emma had started visiting more often. Right around the time Daniel's late nights had started. They were careful. No explicit messages, nothing obviously incriminating. But the subtext was clear. The emojis, the coded language, the timing of messages sent while I was sleeping or at work. One text from Emma. She suspects nothing. You worry too much. One from Daniel. I hate lying to her. Emma's response. Then don't. Eventually. I stared at that last message for a long time. Eventually. Like I was a problem they'd deal with eventually. An obstacle they'd remove when the timing was right. That's when I knew. This wasn't an affair. This was a plan. Emma had always wanted what I had. And now, she wanted Daniel. More than that, she wanted my life, my house, my husband, my future. And Daniel, kind, trusting Daniel, had fallen for it, had believed her performance, had chosen her. The betrayal from him hurt. But the betrayal from her felt ancient, inevitable, like something I'd been waiting for my entire life. I didn't fall apart. Falling apart was a luxury I couldn't afford. Instead, I got strategic. First, I copied everything. Every text, every receipt, every piece of evidence. I backed it up in 3 places, cloud storage under an account they didn't know about. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best divorce attorney in Chicago, a woman named Margaret Chen, who had a reputation for destroying cheating spouses in court. How pregnant are you? She asked during our consultation. 20 weeks? She nodded. That changes things, makes things clearer. Illinois law heavily favors the custodial parent, especially when infidelity is involved. What do I need? More of what you already have. Proof of ongoing affair, proof of expenditure of marital assets, proof of deception. Can you get photos? I hesitated. Maybe. Get them if you can. But even without them, what you have is solid. I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Powerful. The next part was harder. I hired a private investigator, a retired cop named Bill Santos, who specialized in infidelity cases. I showed him the texts, gave him dates and locations. "This'll be easy," he said. "They're not even being careful." He was right. Within a week, he had photos. Daniel and Emma at a restaurant holding hands across the table. Daniel and Emma entering her hotel. Daniel and Emma at our house, in our bed, while I was at a doctor's appointment. That last set of photos broke something in me. Not my resolve, but the last remnant of doubt. The tiny voice that had whispered, maybe I was wrong, maybe there was an explanation. There wasn't. There was just betrayal. Calculated and complete. Emma called 2 weeks later. "I want to throw you a baby shower." I almost laughed. "You don't have to do that." "I want to. Please, let me do this for you." For the baby. The audacity of it would have been impressive if it wasn't so cruel. She was sleeping with my husband and wanted to throw me a baby shower. Wanted to stand in front of my friends and family and perform sisterhood while actively destroying my marriage. But I said yes, because I'd learned something from Emma over the years. Sometimes you have to let people think they're winning. "That would be really nice," I said. "Thank you." She planned everything. Sent invitations, booked a venue, coordinated with my friends, played the role of devoted sister so convincingly, even I almost bought it. Daniel kissed me goodbye the morning of the shower. "Have fun," he said. "You deserve it." "Thanks," I said. "I'll text you later." He smiled, kissed me again. Went to work. I knew exactly where he was going. Bill had confirmed it that morning. Emma's apartment. They had a standing Saturday arrangement when I was supposed to be busy. But today was different. Today, I had a plan. The venue was beautiful. Emma had rented a private room at a boutique hotel, decorated it herself with pink and white balloons, flowers, a dessert table covered in macarons, and tiny cakes. 50 guests, friends from work, Daniel's family, my parents, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Everyone hugged me, congratulated me, remarked on how good I looked. Emma floated through the room like a hostess, gracious and warm, accepting praise for the beautiful party she'd thrown. "Your sister is so sweet," Daniel's mother said. "Family is everything." "It really is," I agreed. The games were typical shower fare: guess the baby food, measure the belly, advice cards. Emma organized everything, kept things moving, made sure I was the center of attention. Then came the gifts, mountains of them, diapers and onesies and blankets. Everyone took turns, handed me boxes, watched me open them, oohed and awed at tiny clothes and baby gear. Emma waited until everything else was opened. Then she stood, holding a pristine white box with a silver bow. "This one's from me," she said, her smile bright and perfect. I wanted to save it for last. The room quieted, everyone watching, waiting. She handed me the box. It was heavier than I expected. "Open it," she said. So I did. Inside, nestled in white tissue paper, was Daniel's watch, the Omega Seamaster he'd gotten for his 30th birthday, the one he'd lost 6 months ago, the one I'd seen in Bill's photos from last week, on his wrist, in her apartment. The room went silent. I lifted the watch slowly, let it catch the light. "This is Daniel's watch." Emma's smile flickered. "Is it? I found it at a thrift store. Thought you could give it to the baby when they're older." "No," I said calmly. "This is Daniel's watch. It has his initials engraved on the back. See?" I turned it over. DMC Daniel Marcus Chen. Emma's face went pale. "He lost this 6 months ago," I continued, my voice steady. "Or at least, that's what he told me. But apparently, he left it at your apartment." The silence in the room shifted, became heavier, more aware. "I don't know what you're talking about," Emma said, but her voice had lost its certainty. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "Should I show everyone the photos? The ones from last Saturday? You and Daniel in your apartment? Or maybe the texts?" Months of texts about sneaking around, about lying to me, about waiting for the right time to tell me. Emma's mouth opened, closed. "Kat, you're misunderstanding. I'm really not." I looked at my mother, sitting frozen near the front. "Did you know? Did Dad?" My mother's face crumpled. "Know what?" "That Emma's been sleeping with Daniel. For months. While I'm pregnant with his child." The room erupted. Not loudly, but with sharp gasps, whispered, "Oh my gods," the sound of chairs scraping as people shifted, unsure whether to leave or stay. Daniel's mother stood abruptly. "That's not possible. Daniel wouldn't—" "He did," I said. I pulled up the photos on my phone, the ones Bill had taken. Showed her. Showed everyone who wanted to see. Emma backed toward the door. "This is insane. You're being paranoid. Hormonal. I'm telling the truth," I said. Finally. My father stood, his face hard. "Emma, is this true?" She looked at him, at me, at the room full of people staring at her with dawning horror. And for once in her life, Emma couldn't perform her way out. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. There it was, the confession. small but undeniable. My mother made a sound like something breaking. How could you? She doesn't appreciate him, Emma said, suddenly defiant. She takes him for granted. I understand him. I see him. You took him, I corrected, like you've taken everything from me since we were kids. The room was watching us now, not like guests at a party, but like witnesses to something raw and real. I didn't take anything you weren't willing to lose, Emma shot back. I stood slowly, carefully, one hand on my belly. You're right. I'm not willing to lose anything anymore, especially not my dignity. I looked at Daniel's mother. I filed for divorce 3 days ago. Daniel was served this morning. He doesn't know I know about today, about where he is right now. But my lawyer does. And so does the private investigator documenting everything. I turned to my parents. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But I couldn't let her keep pretending. Keep performing. Keep taking. My mother was crying. My father looked like he'd aged a decade in 5 minutes. I picked up my bag, left the watch on the table. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry the party ended this way, but I'm not sorry for telling the truth. As I walked toward the door, Emma grabbed my arm. Kat, please. I looked at her hand, then at her face. Let go. I'm your sister. No, I said. You're the person who's been stealing from me my entire life. But you can't have this. You can't have my baby, my future, or my silence. I pulled my arm free and walked out. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, sharp and broken. Get out. Emma, get out. And for the first time in my life, someone else was telling Emma no. Daniel came home that night to find his bags packed and on the porch. The locks changed, a lawyer's card taped to the front door. He called 47 times. I didn't answer. He showed up at my office. Security escorted him out. He sent emails, long rambling explanations about confusion and mistakes, and not meaning to hurt me. I forwarded them to Margaret. This is good, she said. Keep everything. Don't respond. The divorce was fast. Illinois law doesn't require drawn-out proceedings when adultery is proven. We had a settlement within 2 months. The house was mine. Alimony was mine. Full custody was mine. Daniel tried to argue, said he deserved to be in his child's life. Should have thought of that before you slept with her aunt, Margaret said in court. The judge agreed. Emma called once. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to her sobbing apology. Her claims that she loved him, that she hadn't meant to hurt me, that family should forgive family. I deleted it. My parents visited often. My mother couldn't stop apologizing, as if Emma's choices were somehow hers to own. My father was quieter, sadder, but present. We failed you, he said once. We saw what she was doing, and we called it sibling rivalry. We should have stopped it. You can't stop Emma, I said. You can only choose not to let her win. My daughter was born in April, 7 pounds, dark hair, Daniel's eyes, but my stubborn chin. I named her Claire, after my grandmother, the one person who'd always seen Emma clearly. Daniel wasn't at the birth, didn't meet her until she was 3 months old, court-supervised visitation only. He tried to be present, but you can't build trust from rubble. Emma moved to Denver. I heard through my mother that she and Daniel broke up within weeks of my divorce being finalized. Apparently, he was devastated by what he'd lost and took it out on her. And Emma discovered that winning me wasn't the same as winning Daniel. Some people are born knowing how to take, but they never learn what to do with what they've stolen. I rebuilt. Slowly, carefully, with help from my parents and friends and a therapist who specialized in family trauma. I learned that the opposite of betrayal isn't revenge, it's boundaries. Claire grew. I worked. We built a life, just the two of us. And it was smaller than I'd planned, but more honest than I'd ever had. And on her first birthday, when I blew out the candle on her smash cake and she laughed with icing all over her face, I realized something. Emma hadn't taken my future. She'd just revealed who deserved to be in it. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting for something broken. It's walking away and building something new. If this story felt familiar, drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to choose yourself over someone who kept taking, you're not alone. Subscribe for more stories, because the truth, even when it hurts, is always worth telling.